What's going on, everyone? So, per Jake Fisher, the San Antonio Spurs were a team that called Cleveland about Garland earlier this offseason. The Cavs rebuffed any inbound trade interest in the 24-year-old. Now, there was a lot of reports that, hey, if Donovan Mitchell ends up re-signing with the Cavaliers or signing the new extension, which he did, that Darius Garland was unhappy with his role and that he would be looking to request a trade and that he would potentially be on the move. And the Spurs were one of the arguably most linked teams to a Darius Garland trade. There was a lot of reports, a lot of talk of Darius Garland going to the Spurs, and the Spurs would make a big push for him. They really wanted to, early in the offseason, make a point to get a real point guard, somebody that could help set up Victor Wembanyama, somebody that could help kind of be the engine for the San Antonio Spurs. You saw them, fast forward, go and draft Stephon Castle, right? He's the guy that they're hoping to kind of mold and shape and turn into a starting level point guard in this league. And then they went and brought in Chris Paul, which is a guy that I've said repeatedly, I think was the best decision that they could have made just for the development of this team, also to help Victor Wembanyama and help him kind of take the next step, take the next leap in year two, right? So the Spurs really did a nice job in service of kind of rounding that out, right? And you still have like Trey Jones, right? Which I think he will continue to grow and continue to develop, especially again alongside Chris Paul. No, he's closer to, like if he can kind of become like his brother, Tyus, that would be excellent for the Spurs. Kind of that three-point shooting, can set guys up, run an offense type of point guard. But Darius Garland, I mean, he made a ton of sense for the Spurs, given just his age, the still growth upside and potential, and how good he was pre-Donovan Mitchell. Right? I think a lot of people forget how good Darius Garland was. I mean, he was an all-star. This dude was 20-plus point a game night, 23, basically get you 8 to 9 assists, get you a couple rebounds, could defend. And he was looking like the next kind of, top-tier point guard in the league, like that he was going to develop into that. So it made sense, like, hey, you bring in a guy that fits kind of the youth movement, but has some experience, has some playoff experience, knows what it takes to kind of run and operate a team, gives you another scoring option, gives you a playmaking option. Him alongside, Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama could be really nice. However, you're probably giving up Vassell, is my guess, in a trade for Darius Garland. I just don't see the Cavs being like, oh yeah, Keldon Johnson and Zach Collins, let's do that, right? It probably would have been centered around Vassell. We don't know like what they were willing to offer, if much, but I think if Darius Garland was on the table, given just the information we have, I think the Spurs would have pushed hard for Garland. I think that they would have basically given up whatever they wanted for Garland. Also, you got to keep in mind, team like the Cavs, they're probably not interested in like a heavy, like pick package. Because they got Donovan Mitchell, they got, Jared Allen, which, we'll see what they do with them. Supposedly they're not going to trade him. Supposedly they're not trading anybody, right? But, you got a team that's trying to win now. Evan Mobley, right? They just got him his new contract. So they don't want, I don't see them being a team that wants a bunch of draft picks and assets. They probably want guys that can help now that have potential upside, such as Darius Garland. So I do think that it would be something like a Vassell, maybe even Keldon Johnson that would have to be put out for Darius Garland. But regardless, I mean, look, could the Spurs still look maybe at some point to move and try to get Darius Garland? I wouldn't rule it out personally. I think one, it'll depend on kind of the strides that Stephon Castle takes between now and kind of the trade deadline. Also, I think it depends on just the Cavs in general, right? Darius Garland says he's happy and he's fine right now. He's not going to request a trade, but that can change, and that can change quick. And we see that all the time, in particularly the NBA, right? Like 1 minute everyone's happy, the next minute somebody wants out. And so if Darius Garland doesn't continue to work, and it is kind of frustrating, and he does kind of get to the point where it's like, all right, I need to get out of here, I could see him kind of back on the trade market, and I still think the Spurs potentially make a move for Darius Garland, because again, he is so young, right? If he was like 27, 28, I don't think that they would be as active in trying to acquire him, right? Because it's like, okay, we could spend the next 3 years developing Castle and we're good. But I could see, hey, Darius Garland, him being 24, 25, he's a guy that fits now with what we want, kind of puts us further ahead than we would be. And now you're in a position to where, I still don't think necessarily Darius Garland for Vassell makes you a champion. I think it makes you better, but I don't think it makes you like this contender. But it's about like, okay, the beginning stages, beginning pieces, right? Now you go and you make the push. Do you go and trade, Keldon Johnson for a Lauri Markkanen and give up the rest of the pick? Now you're really pushing it. Now you got like Garland, Harrison Barnes, Lauri Markkanen. You have, Stephon Castle could easily play, your 2 guard or whatever, however you want to approach it, right? Like if you can convince them to keep Castle, right? So you could do something like you starting 5 could be Garland, Castle, Barnes, Markkanen, and Wemby. That sounds pretty good to me. I think that's bare minimum. I think you can make the playoffs with that. Obviously, it's a lot of pressure to put on a player like Stephon Castle, but I mean, even the first year, if you were to pull something off like that, you could just slide Garland to the 2 just for the year, kind of have Chris Paul be the point guard. So you have, Chris Paul, Garland, and then kind of let Castle kind of come into his own. Look, Spurs have had a lot of interest. There have been a lot of reports and a lot of just talk linked to Darius Garland. So if Garland becomes available, I think you'll hear his name again, right? Unless Stephon Castle just, by the time you get to the trade deadline, it's like, oh no, he clearly can be a point guard. Because again, you can always make the argument, we'll just slide him and be the 2, right? And then defensively, he's an upgrade, right? Like, so to me, I like the beauty of Castle is he is this guy that can play either guard position if you need him to, and I think he can do it well. So if Garland were to become available later on down the road, I think you could look to trade for Garland and then keep Castle, and now Castle's kind of your point of attack 2 guard who can, do a little bit of everything for you. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, again, Garland has to one out and demand a trade and request a trade. 2, the Spurs have to still be interested and want to go and acquire him. I wish we knew when the Spurs called and acquired, right? Because, it says early in the offseason, but how early? Was it like before the draft? And it's like, well, now that they got Stephon Castle, there's not really that interest anymore. Or was it after the draft where it was like, hey, yeah, like Stephon Castle, we can run the 2, because timing is everything, right? Like if they inquired before the draft and, and it didn't work out and they were like, okay, fine, let's draft Castle and he's now our point guard of the future, then great. But if it was after the draft, then the Spurs might be looking at it the way that I'm, kind of looking at it myself, where it's like, yes, Stephon Castle, he's a guy that could play the point, but if we get a guy like a Darius Garland, then Castle, he could easily slot into the 2, and he can kind of fill the Vassell role, right, and kind of have him and be better defensively. So again, timing is kind of everything. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of Darius Garland? Are you disappointed that they didn't go and acquire him? If he becomes available, would you want the Spurs to go? Yeah, like, hey, if he becomes available, go get him. Or do you think, stay away from him? He's not worth it. It's not worth trading Vassell. Again, to me, it always boils down to the package, right? That's always what I default to, right? Like, Darius Garland, I do think would expedite what you're looking to do. I know he hasn't looked great in, the recent, I mean, he's still good, right? He's still been very good, but he hasn't looked what people expected him to be. But it's also because, again, he's a point guard that now has to play essentially off ball as a shooting guard, and he's having to make those adjustments. Right? And, I think he's done about as good of a job as you can. I mean, another great example, look at like the Atlanta Hawks with DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, right? Like DeJounte Murray was, again, all defensive, all-star level guard, looked like he was going to be the next big thing. And then he ends up going to the Atlanta Hawks. And lo and behold, it's like, it's just not a good fit. We'll see what he becomes with the New Orleans Pelicans. But just, it's always something that, you never know until it actually happens. But anyway, again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.